Welcome, everyone, to our regular daily broadcast on Kabbalah for Heretics. We've been going through, as we have been the last 25 years, the Zohar, volume by volume, cover to cover, page by page, sentence by sentence. And in that way, as you're very well aware by now, we have finished volumes 1, 2, and 3, and are now well into finishing volume 4. The Zohar is speaking in its very profound way of the light and the darkness of the Messiah who comes to enlighten the darkness and so forth. Now, it's very important to remember as we study these things in the Zohar that these things being said by the Zohar have been for thousands and thousands of years among the Jews considered equal in authority to the written Torah. You must understand that the Zohar is not just something that somebody put together alongside the Torah and fobs off as being real Torah. It has been looked upon by the Jews as equal in authority to the written Torah forever. Now, I know there are those, even Jews, who want to deny that, and there are certainly Christians who want to deny that, but it's so. So what we're reading here is pre-Christian theology. What we have seen is, what we left off with, get ready. With that in mind, with that caution in mind that I just gave you. What we left off with is that God hates mankind. He has a grudge against mankind. And he lets that out on the tzaddik. Do you remember? I hope you all remember that. Now that's extraordinary. Hang on, I'm looking for the exact place. Night is one grade. Then morning light is another grade, which we also know. And a higher grade, which always accompanies the other. The sun is a third grade known to us, which establishes all and gives light to all. The sun. This is a very strong implication that the sun is a deity, or that God is the sun. Thus, the morning light receives light from the sun, and it, in turn, gives light to the night, so that they are all linked with one another. When the morning light awakens, all men are gladdened and go about their business. And now that the day has dawned, it is time for us to go on our way. Two extraordinary things have just been revealed to us in the Zohar. One, that God says, who is going to help me? God says, who is going to help me? Man is going to help me, God says. That's first of all. Just to summarize where we've been all last week. That's extraordinary. That's extraordinary. And in addition to that, in addition to the fact that the tzaddik indeed helps God, in all preceding this, God is talking about how he helps man, but then he says, but who shall help me? God. And he answers himself saying, the tzaddik will help me. But on top of that, it tells us that God has a grudge against mankind. and that the tzaddik stands right in front of that grudge. We've often said that from our point of view, the reason that the Messiah, as it were, died on the cross was not for the sins of man against God, but for the sins of God against man. And Jesus died on the cross in order to reconcile God to man. Not man to God, but God to man. In order to calm this crazy, insane God with a grudge against mankind. In effect, Jesus was saying, okay, here I am. I'm paying off the grudge. Forget it now. You cannot help but, I think, be astonished at what the Zohar is saying. This is not my interpretation. This is what the Zohar is saying. We're looking at volume 4, pages 22a to 22b. Go and look at it yourself. I am not interpreting this. It's what is being said in the Zohar. Equal in authority to the written Torah, the so-called Old Testament. Well, I never heard that. You're goddamn right you never heard it. You weren't supposed to. The Zohar was not meant to be heard by the Goyim until the Messiah came. Well, in our point of view, he did come. Sabbatai Zevi came. The whole reason for the Zohar and other works of the oral Torah, the Talmud and so forth, are to keep these things secret and away from those who have no business having them. When Jesus says, do not cast your pearls before the swine, it's don't share the oral Torah with them. All of those references he makes in that way are cautions against revealing the oral Torah to those whom it has no business being revealed. Until now. Because the oral Torah itself says when the Messiah comes, then the Zohar and the oral Torah must be shared with the entire world, Jew and Gentile, children, adults, men, women, educated, uneducated. It must be made known. Until that time, it was not to be made known. Guarded, passed on and discussed orally, not in writing until the 3rd century. And actually, probably until the 13th century, when it was set down in writing. I hope I'm getting across to all of you. So it says where we left off yesterday, when this morning light awakens all men are gladdened and go about their business. And now that the day has dawned, it is time for us to go our way. So Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yossi blessed them and kissed them on their heads and sped them on their way. Said Rabbi Chia to Rabbi Yossi, blessed be God who has gained out steps aright. Verily, God sent these men to us. Blessed are they who study the Torah and do not neglect it for an instant. Notice, they are saying that the rabbis, have been blessed by these two merchants, these common shit-kicking merchants, from whom you would not expect these words of great wisdom, and yet they came from them. And the two rabbis say, yeah, we have been blessed. God surely has set our paths along the way so that we would encounter them. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yossi then left the cave and continued their journey. Remember, they've been in this cave in this enormous rock. Now I want to talk about something here in terms of these two merchants. two men who are deeply involved in the world and so forth. This could be interpreted to mean everybody can have wisdom, but that's not what it is talking about. It's talking about that tzaddik often is hidden. You look at someone, there's another example of this, of the old donkey driver, and they look like just common, ordinary merchants, and you judge them and evaluate them on the basis of what they look like. But secretly they are tzaddikim, and you have to shut the hell up and listen to them. Not everyone is a hidden tzaddik. But it doesn't mean that everyone is enlightened. It doesn't mean that. It means that among the unenlightened, and that's most of us, there are those walking about who would appear to be unenlightened. There are those walking about who would appear to be common, ordinary, shit-kicking assholes, but they are not. And we have to open ourselves to them when they come along our way, when they are presented to us, rather than rejecting them, as you see in the story of the old donkey driver, where the rabbis reject him. Rather than that, you shut the hell up and you listen. Because you are smart enough to know God has this hidden tzaddik on your path. Do not look upon him simply because he's a common, ordinary, shit-kicking camel driver or merchant. Rabbi Shia and Rabbi Yossi then left the cave and continued on their journey. The Baal Shem Tov was himself at the beginning a hidden tzaddik. Everyone thought that he was a disgrace to everybody. He was looked upon as a disgrace because people judged him from the outside. He swore, he gambled, he drank, he hung out with peasants. He was apparently uneducated in Torah. That's the Baal Shem Tov. Until finally he was revealed. But men did not see that. They're so full of their goddamned egos that they cannot see it. They will not see it. Who does that guy think he is to know more than I do? Who does he think he is to be so goddamn holy? That's the ego. The story of the Baal Shem is really remarkable in all that. Because it talks about that. It talks about how his father-in-law was so embarrassed that the Baal Shem Tov, who was not yet the Baal Shem Tov, but Israel ben Eliezer, married his daughter, and he at first would not allow his daughter to marry him. Finally he said, all right, but I'm going to buy you a farm way out of town so that you're not going to be anywhere near everybody else, so that they won't see what an embarrassment he is. Literally. And every Friday, before the Sabbath, her brother, or another rabbi, would come to that little farm and beg her to divorce him. The Baal Shem Tov, then Israel ben Eliezer. The greatest tzaddik of all. And she wouldn't. And he'd get back on his horse and cart and go back to town before the Sabbath began. This one time, he got back on his horse and cart and it broke. And he had to spend Sabbath with this ignoramus brother-in-law of his. And as they sat there making the Shabbos meal, as far as the brother-in-law was concerned, Israel ben Eliezer was doing everything wrong. And he was so disgusted, the brother-in-law. Finally, it was over, and the Baal Shem Tov excused himself. And the brother-in-law curled up on a sofa in front of the fire to sleep. What he didn't know was this Israel ben Eliezer was the Baal Shem Tov. And what the Baal Shem Tov did when he excused himself is he went to this cave being spoken of here, I believe, and crawled into it. It was such a cave that you had to know where the opening was, and you had to get down on your hands and knees to crawl into it. And he crawled into it, and in there were white robes and the Torah scroll, and he would put on the white robes and embrace the Torah and dance in ecstasy with it, this common shit-kicking piece of shit that everybody rejected. And as he did that, his brother-in-law was laying on the couch, looking into the fire, and a spark flew out of the fire onto the carpet and burst into flame, and the brother-in-law saw his brother-in-law, the Baal Shem Tov, dancing in ecstasy in the flames, and knew at that moment who he really was. And his brother-in-law became his greatest advocate. Let those who have ears hear. No one is saying that the tzaddik must say to you, and you must believe that he says, I am better than you. No, 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 no! But at the same time, you must not say, you are no better than I am. You've got a long way to go, buddy, before you achieve what you talk about achieving. By whose judgments are they saying that? There is still a modesty in the hidden tzaddik. Even though he does finally reveal it, it's not bragging to show it. Bragging to say you got it and not show it, and not have it to show. God protect us from those who make it their life's work to pull down and stamp down the holy ones, who want nothing more than to be God's servant, not to rule other men, but to be God's servant. And for that, there are those who want to tear them down and grind them into the dirt. Oftentimes, they'll call you friend. We'll get back to this tomorrow morning, when it says, Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yossi then left the cave and continued their journey. Said Rabbi Yossi, verily my heart goes out to those merchants. Rabbi Chia said to him, I am not surprised at this incident, for in the days of Rabbi Shimon, even the birds utter wisdom, for his words are known above and below. Rabbi Chia then quoted the verse, quote, and the Lord said unto Moses, behold, thou shalt keep and sleep with thy fathers. We'll talk about this in great detail tomorrow morning, God willing. Let me mark my place. In the meantime, I'll end this morning's broadcast, as I've been ending the broadcast every morning, and will for the next year, by reciting the Kaddish, the prayer for the dead, in honor of the memory and the soul of our beloved departed friend and tzaddik, Leonard Cohen. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabba, bal modi v'roch yirusei v'yamlech malchusei, v'chai chon v'yomechon v'chai v'chol beis Yisrael bagalo uvizman, kori v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba v'rach le'elam omer maya, Yisbarach v'yistabach v'yispa'ah v'yisamam v'yisaseh v'yisadar v'yisalev v'yisalal shmei d'kutsha b'richu le'elam mincha b'irchosa v'shirasa tushbechosa v'nechemrosa Tamiron bomo v'imru amen Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayin u'leinu v'alko Yisrael v'imru amen Osei shalom b'imramo hu yasei shalom u'leinu v'alko Yisrael v'imru amen. Go in peace. This broadcast is over. God willing.